So the setting for this, which of course is the most famous part of this, is the giving of the Ten Commandments from God to the Israelites. The setting is that they're out in the desert. They're wandering in the desert. They're journeying through the desert, which will be a long time in the desert. And they've been delivered from the Egyptians, and Moses has formed this very intimate relationship with God. We see in this reading that he will go up to the top of the mountain, Mount Sinai, and he'll talk to God. And he seems to be the intermediary. And then at a certain point, God decides that he's going to start giving the Israelites the law. The law, times the Mosaic law, it starts with the Ten Commandments, but if you read Exodus, Deuteronomy, you see there's a lot of laws that God gives to the Israelites, but these are the most famous, and this is the beginning. What happens in the beginning of chapter 20, where God speaks all of these words and gives the Israelites these principles, these commandments, these precepts, these rules that they're supposed to live by. It just seems to me to be an incredibly sort of Judeo-Christian Western tradition. This is one of those moments that's so definitive. This giving of the law from God to humankind. It's this really dramatic thing, and it is a very dramatic thing. And again, the setting is important, just as in earlier chapters, the deliverance of the Israelites from Egypt. Very, very dramatic, almost cinematic conditions. These very vivid things happening with the plagues. The conditions under which the Israelites are given the law is very, very dramatic and vivid as well. They are, they're called to the foot of Mount Sinai. They're told, first of all, to wash themselves and put on clean clothes, and and then they're summoned to the foot of the mountain. It's very clear that they have to stay there and not approach the mountain, or they'll die. And then the mountain starts shaking, and there's smoke and fire and trumpets blasting, and it creates this incredible atmosphere. And I think that it's very important to keep that in mind, that God doesn't just sort of give the Ten Commandments to the Israelites and say, hey, look these over, I'm going to expect you to live by them. No, he doesn't do that at all. He creates this very scary and dramatic scene in which the Israelites are clearly frightened, standing there out in the desert, on the foot of a mountain, with the fire and the smoke and the trumpets blaring and the mountain trembling and all that. That is clear that they're put into a certain psychological condition. And maybe there's some message there, and maybe there's not. But that seems to be an important thing. That is, it's not just I'm going to give you these rules to live by. I'm going to create this very dramatic event, and then during which I'm going to give you those rules. I think that the commandments themselves, if you're aware of this tradition, if you're Jewish or Christian or Muslim, you're very familiar with this. If you're not, then you may not be, and that's fine too. But what's in the Ten Commandments is a very sort of famous thing. But looking at them closely, I don't think a lot of people actually do. It's a very odd, I would say, collection of rules or precepts or principles that you're supposed to live by. Some of which have to do with what we would consider directly with morality, like don't kill and don't steal. Others, not really. Others have to do with worship. You shall have no other gods beside me. You shall not make for yourself an idol. Keep the Sabbath day holy. Do not take the Lord's name in vain. I mean, these things seem more to do with establishing proper ways of worship, and they seem to be about the relationship between human beings and God, whereas these other precepts, you shall not kill, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, basically, don't lie. they're about how human beings are supposed to treat each other. So it's an interesting collection of rules, um, which don't fit together in any obvious way, I think, to the modern mind, because again, some of them seem to be about the relationship between human beings and God and how human beings are supposed to act in that relationship, and some of them strictly about how human beings are supposed to treat each other. So that, you shall not kill does seem to be maybe that's a universal principle that all human beings kind of know that they should follow. Whereas the Sabbath day, keep it holy, or do not invoke the name of the Lord in vain. Those things don't seem so obvious, to everybody. They're part of a particular religious custom. So it's quite an interesting, and of course, incredibly historically important collection of precepts and rules, which is at the heart of this reading, obviously.